In that module, again, you'll see the same categories of teachers: developing, proficient, exemplary. And in this module, we're going to be exploring more standards-based units. What does it mean to have a well-structured lesson? We're also going to be looking at increasing student engagement in our classrooms and what that looks like, and meeting the diverse needs of the students in our classroom. In this same standard, there's standard P2, not P1, is assessment. And the entire module 3 is on assessment. And what are the methods we use for assessment? How do we modify our instruction based on assessment? And how do we judge our student progress? And what do we use assessment for? The third domain of the standards is the continuous improvement domain. Now, there isn't a module for this because the continuous improvement domain is woven all throughout this course. We will talk about these in the modules, we will visit them in the upcoming webinars, and you will live them through your practice and through your reflection. Growth mindset, this is what we're talking about in this course. Being a reflective practitioner, you're going to be self-assessing yourself based on the standards. You're going to be looking at goal setting. This course hopefully will spur you on to think, what else do I need to do in terms of my own professional development? So this is threaded, this third domain is threaded throughout the course. So again, a quick reminder to download these so you'll have them throughout the course. So to take a little break here from listening to me, I'd like to hear you say, I'd like to see you answer in the chat. What are the 3 characteristics of the best teacher you have known or observed? Basically, what we want to look at here is what separates the excellent teachers from the so-so or the mediocre teachers. What have you observed? I'll just take a couple minutes to see if anyone has any comments. And this may be a teacher that you've had. So Janet says, really engage students and learners. Oh, all the answers are coming quickly. Kindness, interest in students, yes. Enthusiastic, exactly. Sarah, lively, spontaneous, empathic. Okay, sorry. Yes, creative and passionate about content, student-centered. Yes, we're going to come back and visit that word soon. Attentive to students' needs, connecting, enthusiasm for the subject. Great, he challenged us. Okay, students' interest and attention and imagination. Yes, one of the things we'll be talking about in one of our modules is relevance. Students who care, not afraid to get excited and be real in class. Yes, these are all really great comments about what, sorry, I just saw someone. Louise, do you have a question? Okay, sorry, it popped up on my screen that someone raised their hand. Okay, thank you for all your feedback here. Positive, inquisitive, passionate, interested in learning from students. Thanks, James. That's a great segue into something we're going to be talking about. Okay, so the answers keep coming. That's really wonderful. Exactly. So when we think about excellent teachers, one of the characteristics is that excellent teachers think differently about their students. They have a deep understanding of their content area and their student needs. Someone earlier in the chat just said this. They think differently about their teaching, and they think differently about themselves as students. Basically, what we're saying is that excellent teachers think differently. They put reflection into what they're doing, and they really think about all the comments and all the characteristics that you all are talking about. Okay, so thank you, and I know some of you are still typing your comments. We'll get a chance to read those, and other people can check in on them while I'm still talking here. So next, I want to go over what our course learning objectives are, and pulling us back to the standards again. because we talked about the 3 domains which correspond to our 3 modules, so it should be no surprise that our 3 learning objectives connect to those 3 things. We're working in threes here. So the first one really is the professional knowledge domain. And again, I said to you earlier that you're going to be very familiar with the professional standards by the end of this. That's learning objective 1, and that's module 1. Module 2 is our instructional practice. That connects to what does high quality teaching and meaningful learning look like and sound like in the classroom. And then finally, the continuous improvement or continuous practice, you're going to continually being able to, or continually assess your professional knowledge, understanding, and practice. So these are our learning objectives. Again, these are on the home page, but I just wanted to go over them here. So now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but one of the unique things about this course is that you get to choose your pathway. And this goes back to something we just said in the learning objectives, where you're going to be self-assessing. And so no matter where you are at this moment, as a teacher, as a practitioner, there's a place for you in this course, and you get to choose. Do you want to be on learning pathway A, or do you want to be on learning pathway B? And learning pathway A, in each of the tasks that we have, there are going to be these descriptors, and you're going to read that and say, well, I do agree, maybe this describes where I'm at in terms of this task and this module. So you may say, oh, for the professional knowledge, I need a little bit more basis here. So I'm going to choose pathway A. But by the time you get to pathway B, or excuse me, module 2, you may read the descriptor and say, I think I'm a little bit more grounded here. I'd like to challenge myself a little bit more. So I'm going to go in pathway B. You can, between modules, you can change pathways. We only ask that you stay in a pathway for an entire module. You are going to do the tasks and the activities associated with that pathway, and you are going to stay in the discussion board and talk to your colleagues who are in the same pathway. If you have a lot of time and you want to do both pathways in a module, great, but we only require that you do one. And as I said, you can flip between the modules, which is great. So you'll notice on the left-hand side of the slide that there are these icons. You will also see them throughout the course, and you'll see this repeatedly as you look on your pathway. The first one is notice this. In each pathway, in each module, we have articles and videos and research, and the idea is that you're noticing things that are in your own practice. Try this is to say, take all of what you were just reading about or watching and try it out in your classroom. The next one is reflect and respond to this. We're asking you then to talk on a discussion board and respond to your colleagues, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And finally, we are trying to connect it all together, which is a portfolio. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in this webinar. And finally, for those of you with a lot of time or who get really excited about some of this, we're asking that you can extend with this, which again is optional, and there are activities, resources, research to further your thinking and practice in a certain area. So I mentioned that the reflect and respond, if you look in the upper left of this slide, is all about our discussion board. Our discussion board is critical to modules, the 3 online modules, inquiry-based modules. So after you do the tasks associated in a module, we ask that you post on a discussion board. And you'll find it, you'll be able to see it once you log into your Blackboard account and this course. But if you look to where the red arrow is, this just tells you for now, this is what you're going to do. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to see discussion board, and then this will come up. And in each area, in each discussion, we are going to have questions. You can see them circled in red here. We are going to have questions that we're going to ask that you respond to and that you post. So in each time you are on the discussion board, you'll see an area to click on that says Create Thread, and you are going to, excuse me, you are going to click on that, and then you'll be able to create a post. At the same time, your colleagues in the same pathway are going to be creating posts, and that we are then going to ask that you respond to each other's posts as well. So here's just an example from our pilot a year ago. Sarah is her name, was her name, the author, your name shows up. She replied to our first, she replied to one of our prompts. And then down below, Jean, who is one of our content area specialists and is on this webinar today. Down below, Jean replied, someone replied further down. So you get the idea of how this is working. Okay, oops, let me go back for 1 second. We're going to talk, I'll talk a minute about the discussion board expectations a little bit more. But for now, once again, I've been talking a lot. As I warned you, this is a lot of information out today to prepare you for this course. So I want to just take a minute to ask, what is a thought or question you have now after learning just a little bit more about this course? And if you have a minute to just jump in the chat room there and say a thought or question. And if you don't have one, that's fine. And you may have some at the end. I'm hoping that we're going to have, as we know, we started a little late, but I hope we have just a few minutes for questions. The other thing I should say about questions is that you have a great team of us working on this, and we are all available for answering your questions at any point in time. Oh, so I saw, what are the objectives of the course? You will see those when you go back to, when you go on your Blackboard account for the first time. The homepage, it comes up when you log into the account for the first time. I went over them just a few minutes ago, and they connect with the standards. So there's one learning objective for each of the standards. Tessa, you're asking what are ways to apply what we learn? So what we're asking you to do is to try things out in the classroom, and then in the end, you are creating a portfolio that says what is a teacher doing and what is a student doing in your portfolio, and I'll explain that in a minute. So what are ways we're actually asking you to apply everything that you're learning. So Mitch, you're not going to have to come up with a lesson plan. What we're asking you to do here is to read materials, look at videos, look at research, resources. We give you a menu of choices of things to look at. Then we ask you to try to implement some of what you've learned in the classroom, and then post a discussion post on Blackboard. So that's about it. At the end, there is the portfolio, which I'm going to explain, but no lesson plans. Yes, Robin, that's I think one of the highlights of this course is that you're learning from each other. The discussion board is a great place for people to say, hey, you tried that. I like this idea. Okay, give a couple more minutes to see if there's other questions, and then we'll just move on because some of your questions will get answered, hopefully, if there's anything else. Well, let me jump back in here then to talking about the discussion board. So I mentioned when I was just replying to Mitch that one of the way, or sorry, it was Tessa, how are we applying what we learn? One of the ways how you're applying it is, as I said, you're trying it out in the classroom, and then this is what you're doing on the discussion board. You are talking about your learning. You're making your thinking visible. You're sharing with your colleagues, as well as with the content area specialist and myself. You're going to be answering the questions that we ask you and telling us, what did you try? What ahas did you have? What did you notice? So we ask that in each module, everyone post one time. You can post more if you'd like, but a minimum of one reflective post where you respond to all the questions. And then we ask that you respond to a minimum of 2 of your colleagues. And you may find that you're so intrigued by what people are saying that you reply to more, and that's what makes a really robust discussion. And we often will find very long posts as people get excited as they're responding to each other. And so when you respond, what we ask is that it be a thoughtful response. You can link the learning of someone else to your own learning. You can connect ideas saying, that was really interesting what you did, and that makes me think of this. Or part of our goal in this is to make people's, in the end, to make our students thinking more visible. So another strategy is to ask questions of each other. So that was interesting when you said you tried that new activity in the classroom. It makes me wonder this. So you're posing questions to your colleagues to help further their own thinking. So those are our expectations for each of the 3 modules. One post, one reflective post from you, and then at least 2 responses to your colleagues. And to get you started on using the discussion board, after this session, we want you to introduce yourself. And so go on the discussion board in Blackboard and introduce yourself. Tell us like you did when you came into this session today. Who are you? Where do you work? How long have you worked in adult education? Even anything you really want to share. We've heard some really interesting things that people have shared in the past that aren't necessarily connected to their classroom, which is totally fine. And please feel free to say hi to each other. One thing I mentioned early on, you need to choose a focus area. We know that in adult ed, again, many of you wear different hats. You may teach math and ELA, but for the purposes of this course, we ask that you please choose a content area and that you please do it in your discussion, if not today. If you already know and you want to pop in the chat by the end of the day and say, my focus is, we love that. Excuse me, but certainly in the discussion board in the next couple of days when you introduce yourselves, please tell us if you're going to focus on ELA, ESOL, or math. And that, again, helps you hone your practice and the work you're doing in this course, and it helps us with logistics. Okay, so again, this is about the discussion board. The more interactive you are, the more successful you will be, and the more robust the discussion board is going to be. So now I've mentioned before the final portfolio project, and if you look in the upper left, this is our connect to this. And going back to what Mitch said, we are not doing lesson plans, but we're going back to those professional standards for teachers in adult education. And if you remember, we had a green arrow in the proficiency area. So we're using what a proficient teacher does for each of the standards in the middle. And then we are asking you on the left-hand side to tell us, what does this look like and sound like in a classroom? What is the teacher doing? And on the right-hand side, what are the students doing? And we, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. What you are doing in this is, it sounds maybe daunting because final portfolio project, but what we're asking you to do is to fill it in at the end of every module, even jot notes down. And again, our team that's working on this is here with you today. We've all done a portfolio and we know what it's like. And we know that if you wait until the end of the course, it's going to take a very long time because you have to go back through what you did in other modules and reread things. So I really encourage you to jot a few notes down or fill it in at the end of each module, because that's much more helpful to do it that way. You also, and I'll show you an exemplary. Here's an exemplar by a woman named Sierra Dickey, who took this course during the pilot. She agreed to let us share hers. And this, again, is on Blackboard, and you can download it. And again, you see this is what it's going to look like. She filled in the blue areas. What makes this so great is that she was very specific about the action. She wasn't theoretical. She was talking about this is what the specific actions of what it looks like. So what we're really asking you to do in this is we're looking for you to share your thought process in your classroom practice and your understanding of what's happening and to connect it to the standards. You don't have to make a laundry list, and you'll notice on the left she has 3 comments, she has 2, maybe you only have 1, but we ask that you be thoughtful in these as you go through it. And again, in the webinar 3, we'll be talking more about this. And again, we're all available to answer your questions, but I do encourage you again to at least fill in notes along the way. You will have an hour at the end of the, or excuse me, a week at the end of the course to finalize this. So again, this is just what you are going to be looking for. So our goal is for you to shift your thinking and your practice from teacher-directed lessons to student-centered lessons. And maybe some of you already are on the student-centered lessons, and that's great. You're going to have a chance to focus more on that and push yourself and challenge yourself a little bit more on that. This again goes back to our idea of the 2 pathways. And so in pathway B, if you're a newer teacher, or excuse me, pathway A, if you're a newer teacher, you might be more focused on yourself right now as a teacher and, oh my gosh, what do I do? And then the student, or a pathway B, you might already be doing more student-centered lessons, but you could certainly use more strategies and reflect more on how it's going. I wanted to show you this slide to give you a little idea about this. If you look at the cats on the left, what we're asking you to do here in this course is to shift your perspective from focusing on what's right in front of you, yourself, your lesson plan, to really stepping back and changing your perspective and looking at the bigger picture and lifting your head up and saying, what are my students learning? So you're drawing your focus away from yourself in this course and really trying to go on to your students, because that is at the heart of what we're all doing in education, our students. So I've talked a little bit about our team. This course was developed as a collaboration among the 3 curriculum and instruction PD centers from SABES, ESOL, Math, and ESOL. As I said, I'm the lead facilitator, obviously, and then we have content area specialists for each of the areas, and all of us are going to be responding to you. So if you say that my focus for this course is math, you probably won't hear from Janet. That's okay. But you might, you never know. But our goal is that the content area specialists, they're all specialists in their field. They're all experts in their areas. They've worked with SABES. They've worked on this course. And so we've added people in here to be able to reply to you specifically about your content areas. I will also be responding to your posts and your final portfolio. And our tech specialist, whom some of you have already had the pleasure, I guess, of working with today, if you were having some issues getting in, is Kate. And all of us are available at all times to be able to help you and to answer any questions you have. And so again, pink, the pink bubble. I guess you can tell in the past, sometimes people haven't picked a focus right away, so we're emphasizing that. Please pick a focus. Okay, so moving on, we're going to shift a little bit here. It sets the framework of our course, really, the teaching and learning cycle. And again, no surprise, it's threes. We're correlating these, the teaching and learning cycle correlates to the three standards in the three domains in the standards, which correlate to our three learning modules. And so no matter what content area you are, these are all part of the teaching and learning cycle. And as I've said repeatedly, at the heart of this is our own student learning. So I'm going to go just a little bit through and here we go. So remember that as much as our students learn from us, we learn from our students, and our students learn from each other as well. And what we call that is the transaction of learning. So teachers and students learning from each other and making their thinking visible. Okay, so now, again, I want to take a brief moment for you to jump on the chat. And so what does it mean to have visibility in teaching and learning? What does it look like? And how does it help teaching and learning? And if you don't know, if this is a new idea for you, don't worry about it. You just don't have to answer, because this, again, is a part of the course that we're going to be examining more. So jump on the chat room if you have something to say. I'm just checking there. Louise, yes, the slides will be up on Blackboard, I believe. Kate, yes? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, and so I'm seeing that there were a lot of questions about which area to choose. If you aren't quite sure, feel free to contact us. I know that the three content specialists have already introduced themselves on Blackboard, and each of them put up their contact information. I believe Kate's is up on Blackboard, and mine will soon be up there. And you can always ask any of us questions throughout the discussion board too. So if you're a little on the fence about what is the best way for you to go, feel free to ask us questions. Great, so yes, visibility, a chance to demonstrate how to solve some problems in front of a class. Yes, because as teachers, when someone gives us an answer, we're then asking them, how did you get that answer? Or other students are saying, why? So yes, exactly. Hard to learn what you can't observe. Good, okay. There's a process to acquiring knowledge. Yes, it's nice to address issues that have been assumed, predominant, or ignored. Yes, Tessa, it seems that it can make instruction more personable. Okay, great. So those are some good ideas, and you'll continue. Oh. Yes, oh, great. Yes, exactly. People do division differently in some European countries. Perfect. So you ask them how to show it on the board. And how many of you have ever asked a student a question and said, why did you get that answer? And if you think it's not the right answer, and then they're able to demonstrate to you how they got their answer, which was perfectly great thinking. So good. Okay, we're going to keep moving on here. And so again, this is something we'll be exploring throughout the course, and we'll be coming back to it. So thinking about the teaching and learning cycle, we want to look at where do we start? And we start with instructional design, again, which is no surprise that that's our first module in this course. And we really start when we're teaching with saying, what do I want my students to know, understand, and be able to do? And then we're moving on to what strategies will make their thinking and learning visible. What strategies are going to best meet what we want them to know, to understand, and to be able to do? And then finally, we're looking at what does their thinking tell me about their level of understanding? And I would add to that, what does their thinking tell them about their level of understanding? So this is our teaching and learning cycle. And I want to say all the elements of this are important. Again, this is what the basis of our course is. But if you don't have one of the elements in your lessons, in your teaching, then it falls apart, because no matter what your content area, again, we need to have all of these. You can't really teach without assessment, or you can teach without assessment, but you're not going to come back to that original question about being a highly effective teacher. Okay, so again, this back and forth of what we do, teacher student, student teacher, is all called transactional learning. So I want to come to, we're at the end here. We're going to have some more time for questions, but what I'd like to do is just summarize some of the things that we talked about today. And I'm going to flip forward for a second to show you, this is one important takeaway from today. The more interactive you are, the more successful you're going to be. And the more successful we'll all be, the more we hear from each other. So to go back, to summarize some other things, remember that we're all here to help you. If you have tech questions, you go to Kate. Content questions, your content specialist, or me, or any of us. We all work together. We're in touch with each other. So if you're not in the right place, we can move you to someone else. As I said, we will be commenting. The content specialist and myself will all be commenting on your discussion posts and your final portfolio. Remember to make sure you look at the homepage for this course, so that you have all the dates of the upcoming events, the upcoming webinars, and also the inquiry-driven modules. And also, please post soon in the discussion board so we can get a better sense of who you all are and also your specific content area. And we just want to get to know all of you better. The idea is that we're creating a community here of all of us as learners and practitioner scholars. So I really look forward to hearing about who you all are and meeting all of you on the discussion board. And so with that, we have about 5 minutes left. So I want to see if any of you have questions, and you can pop those in the chat. But first, let me just ask Kate, is there anything else that you want to add about tech issues or anything else?
No, one thing that actually I say no, and then I say, but wait. Yes, I did have something to add. Many of you will notice, for any of you who have not gotten your login information from Joanne, please, you can just type that in the chat and I will make sure that that information gets to you so that you're able to access all of the course. Lately, we've had a couple of issues with items going to people's spam folders for some unknown reason, but if I send them directly to you, we should be okay. And I was going to say something else about that, which slips my mind, but I know what it is. When you log in, you will see that along with the professional adult educator, you've also been enrolled in the SABES Blackboard Basics course. And that is a course for anybody using Blackboard, so all of you, and it walks you through any of the main features that are frequently used in the Blackboard courses through SABES. So the discussion posts, the submitting an assignment, logging into your webinar, a host of different things. So do click on that. That course will remain as a resource for you forever. It will be there. So please do access that course if you have any questions, or if in a couple of weeks you're thinking, oh, I need to post to that discussion board and I forget how. There's a job aid and a video and handy tips for you right there. So that, just so if you see that and wonder what that course is, that is what that is. But I think that is it. Please feel free to reach out at any time. One part of the SABES Blackboard Basics class that you might find useful are virtual office hours, where we meet together in this room, and we can help and guide you through. Pam and I each have office hours each week, and that schedule is right in the SABES Blackboard Basics course. So I look forward to working with all of you for the course. Thank you.
So just, I want to reply to Nahoko. So you asked about accessing the discussion board, and Pam and the three content specialists have already posted their introductions in the discussion board. So again, Kate was just saying, if you're having issues getting into Blackboard, all of that, you need to be able to get into Blackboard because the whole course is based in there, and you're in there, you're in here now. And so if anyone has any questions about accessing how to get started in the course further with Blackboard, please check in directly with Kate then. Okay, and late starts. Oh, a link. Sorry, Mitch. A link to. Oh, late.
Right. He was, I think, referencing the fact that he was a late enrollee, and so he doesn't have the email yet. But I have you on my list, Mitch, to send you the login information and make sure that you're properly enrolled in the course right after we're done with our session.
Great. Okay. Yes. And so then, if others of you have some questions, if you're for some reason you didn't get an email, you needed another email or a way to connect, then please you can contact Kate. Okay, any other questions before we bring this to a close? It's just about 4 o'clock. So again, I look forward to seeing all of you in 2 weeks back here in Blackboard for our second webinar, which our second webinar will be an hour and a half long. Part of that time, you will be in a breakout room where you will have your mic on and you will be discussing the course and your content area with your content area specialist. So yes, let me just saw Sarah's, yes. So if you go on the homepage of Blackboard in this course, it outlines what the schedule is. And your question, Sarah asked, should we complete any modules before the next session? Yes. So there's this webinar, that's part 1. Then you have module 1, which is 2 weeks long, and all the ways to connect to that are in Blackboard. Then in 2 weeks from today, we have module 2, which talks about what you did in the, or excuse me, webinar 2, which talks about what you did in the online webinar. And then after our next webinar, there will be 2 more modules, so 4 weeks. Each one is 2 weeks, and then we'll have a wrap-up webinar. So yes, you should do module 1 before our next session. And with that, I'm going to say thank you all for your attention, for being willing to pop in the chat and share your thoughts and ideas. And on behalf of all my colleagues involved in this, I really look forward to seeing all of you introduce yourselves in the discussion board, and look forward to reading your posts and commenting on each other's posts. So thanks.
Well, are you still there, Michelle? No, I mean, you're welcome to. I don't know. I don't know if Michelle and Janet are still there.
I'm still here.
Oh, Michelle's
Hi.
still there. Janet was gonna. Janet, if you're planning to chat, I think. Oh, yes. I can't hear you though, Janet. Janet just texted me. Are we gonna debrief? And you're welcome to hop on. I was just gonna chat with Michelle a little bit, Janet. Listen.
And it's just us four that are still connected, right?
Yes. Yep. I've removed
Okay.
everybody else. I don't know why Louise is still. Oh.
She's certainly that's her second try, which makes me think she went to a different device. And so that one certainly, but then she got in with number 3.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Janet. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jim just came in and told me that Jim? Math? Oh, okay. Jim's going to focus on ESOL.
Okay, Jim White?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Got it.
And I've assigned Nahoko to Pam because she was the only one, that's the only math person.
You get me.
So Pam Meter took Nahoko.
So I
Thank you, Kate.
have a question.
And we owe her.
Beth McDermott was on this. Was she supposed to be listed as a content specialist for ELA?
Well, I just texted. Oh, hold on one second. Oh, shoot.